So let's talk about how cells actually connect with each other, or what we refer to as cell junctions. When we talk about cellular junctions, there are three principal forms that the cell junctions will take. The first form is the tight junction. The tight junction is where the cell membranes will interact with each other and be held in place through cellular adhesions. These cellular adhesions may allow for intracellular spaces. However, they are in such close proximity to each other that the membranes themselves are in touch with each other. That is, they are adjacently adhered to each other. In one of the types, there is what's referred to as an adherent belt. What the adherent belt does is it creates a stronger or a tighter junction between the cells themselves. You can think of the tight junction as you placing the palms of your hands together and pressing them in place. Now you notice there may be some small spaces in between the palms of the right and left hand. However, the palms are in constant contact with each other, and if one hand moves, it causes the other hand to move around it. That is what the tight junctions will look like. The second type of junction that we see is what's referred to as the gap junction. The gap junction is a junction in which there is adjacent membrane spaces in between the cell membranes, even though they are being held in place by protein adherents, which we refer to as connexons. The gap in between them is usually is excessively microscopic in some tissues, but can be slightly larger in other tissues. The gap junction allows for the two cells to act independent of each other, but allow for communication between the cells to coordinate function between them. So we'll see tight junctions in areas of, say, like the epidermis, and we'll see gap junctions in between, say, neuron cells. The last of the junctions is what's referred to as the desmotic junction. The desmotic junction takes two distinct forms. One is referred to as the true desmotic, or the desmosome, in which we have two types of glycoproteins being developed by both cells, in which the glycoproteins actually interact with each other and hold the cells in place around each other, in which intermediate filament keratins will grow through the glycoprotein cohedrin molecules and actually interweave in between the intracellular spaces and actually go from cell A into cell B, or the cell on the right into the cell on the left, holding the two cells together, where whatever happens to cell 1 automatically happens to cell 2 in terms of functional change or structural change. The other type is what's referred to as the hemidesmotic. In the hemidesmotic, what ends up happening is we have the production of the desmosome proteins, the intermediate filaments, the keratins, growing from one cell into and through connexon proteins into the intracellular space of cell 2. What this does is this forms a desmosome, a desmotic junction, just like we had before, but instead of having plaque proteins growing from both cells adhering onto each other, it's only growing from one cell into the others. We will see these when we look at the integration in between epithelial cells and their connective tissue basal membrane cells. When we look at things like the epidermis, we can see these same types of cell junctions when we look at cells such as cardiac muscle, where at the intercalated discs, what we end up having is we end up having the keratins growing through areas where we have connexons associated with the desmotic junction. What the desmotic junctions do is it ensures that whatever structural change happens in cell 1, we get the same structural change happening in cell 2. That is, the cells move with each other as a single unit. It also allows for integration of communication, integration of functionality in between the cells. So while tight junctions we'll see, say, in epithelial cells, say of the epidermis, or within the epithelial cells, say, lining the lumen of the gastrointestinal tract, The desmotic junction cells we'll see in areas like cardiac muscle, where the cells themselves have to function in such a way where if one cardiac muscle cell starts to move, we need all of the other cardiac muscles that it's associated with to move with it so that the heart itself can contract as a single unit. And so what you want to do is look at what types of cellular junctions are going to be present based off of the functionality of the structures that we're looking at within the body.